I'm Bob Riggio. With me is Major Jim Boensch, retired from the Air Force. And again, we're honoring our veterans, and Jim's a veteran with the United States Air Force. Jim, we're located at the Control Center.
Right, this is Delta One Launch Control Facility. It's the support building for the Launch Control Center, which lies 31 feet below ground here.
What goes on in this building?
Well, I think it was to hide us from our own citizens because the Russians knew exactly where we were. We had them right where we wanted them. We were a deterrent force, and to have a good deterrent, you got to have three things. You got to have a great weapon system. The other side's got to know you've got it, and they got to know you've got the will to use it if they push you into it.
And this building, like you said earlier, is like a Motel 6. It looks like a Motel 6. It has a little kitchen and it has bedrooms, restrooms as well. Why is it like that?
Well, it's laid out so that folks could stay here for extended periods. The topside 8 enlisted people were here for a stretch of 3 days at a time. They were on 12, off 12, 6 security police, a cook, and a facility manager. Now the crew downstairs, we came out for 24 hours. We did that 8 times a month or 2 times a week. There was usually a captain and a lieutenant on the missile crew, so there were a total of 10 people out here. The majority of it was security. Our missiles were not right here with us. They were anywhere from 4 to 14 miles away from the Launch Control Center and at least 3 nautical miles away from each other. That was to keep the Soviets from getting more than one target with one bomb.
And what are the other responsibilities besides the cook and security?
Well, we had the facility manager who took care of the building there. He had a lot of technical orders he had to follow. He was the one that ran the diesel generator, got the snow moved out, rescued people with the snowcat in a blizzard if we happened to have one on site. They were jacks of all trades. As far as actually launching the missiles, except for the maintenance of your antennas and so forth, we had anywhere from 6 or 7 different forms of communication, command control communication. This was messages that would put us in a higher state of readiness or send us to war.
And what about communication from topside to the launch facility below? Could they order breakfast and lunch?
Oh, absolutely. And absolutely. That was, your meals were one of the most important parts of the day. Okay, back in my day, we didn't have a TV downstairs, a commercial TV or an AM/FM radio and cassette player. So if you weren't a reader, you were in tough shape. You became a good reader, or else it could be a fairly boring job.
So this facility, topside again, the control facility was manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long with typically 8 staff people. Who were you communicating with generally?
Well, these would be from higher headquarters, command control communications, communications that would test the system or put us in a higher state of readiness or send us to war. Sure. They would come through these, like I say, over the satellite. This is submarine communications, broadcast from 2 stations in the U.S., Hawes in California, Silver Creek in Nebraska, 5-mile-long antennas under the ground, 60-foot wave from top to bottom, traveled at or below the surface of the land or water, intended to go to submarines. We'd pick up their traffic as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. This would be the deputy commander. The commander would sit up there if you were both awake. Now, if there was just one person awake, the other person would be in the rack there.
But somebody always had to be awake.
Yes, one person had to be awake, absolutely. The communications panels are the same, they're identical.
Okay.
And your technical orders there, everything we did was done by checklist or instructions found in technical orders. It was the same thing as the Commander-in-Chief of Strategic Air Command standing over our shoulder and saying, Jim, you do it this way and you're going to be just fine.
Even though you know it by heart, you still have to go through the checklist.
That's right. You make a check off there. We used to use the old grease pencil. We didn't have vis-a-vis pins. One of the more interesting things is the deputy's position was that red safe there. 2 locks on it. They're fast-opening sesame locks, 4-digit. We did not know the combination of anybody else's lock. The purpose of that being, we had the authenticators in there. These were the devices that we would use to make sure that any go-to-war message, any execution message was from the president or their successor. They would open the locks there, bring these things out. We would inventory these, check the keys up against our 2 key switches. We'd receive the message probably over the primary alerting system up here. We're going to say Tim and I, my deputy, are both awake and ready to rock and roll. We'd received a message before putting us in a higher state of readiness, and then we get that warble tone.
Okay.
We copy the message with our grease pencils on a format there. The whole process takes less than a minute to get the thing down. Tim calls out, we need to get in the safe, and I say, I agree, Tim. So we go back, pop the locks off the safe. We each bring our authenticators to our separate places there. We've got to do this individually, okay? Open the authenticators, and Tim says, boss, I have a valid and authentic execution message from the president. I say, Tim, I do too. Let's get on this thing. First thing we're going to do is we're going to insert our launch keys. We got them laying there. Tim puts his in there. I put mine in the launch control panel up here. Next thing, we buckle in. Third thing we do.
You buckle in.
Yes, we got seat belts there that we never use during peacetime. The purpose being, if we have a near miss, doesn't kill us outright, this thing is going to be violently tossed around. We're sitting on shock absorbers here. There's 2 here and 2 back in the back. This whole room is going to be jumping up and down and thrashing back and forth.
That's why you buckle in.
That is why we buckle in, absolutely. Back in the old days, we would just break a little copper wire and lift the cover switch and throw a switch there that armed the missile. The last thing we need to do is to tell the missiles which ones to launch. And that was done with what's called a preparatory launch command, Alpha PLCA. We dial in a number from 01 to 99 and actuate it, initiate it, and that would tell the missiles, hey, you're going to go, you're not going to go. And we could not tell at this point which ones were going to lift off, which ones weren't. We were just going to have to watch and see what launched. So we're watching the hand-wound submarine clock up here. It's a 24-hour clock set to Zulu time, or Greenwich Mean Time, Universal Standard Time, whatever you want to call it. All the forces worldwide are looking at that same clock face, same time, okay, plus or minus a few seconds. That was done to prevent fratricide, which is blowing up our own guys and gals, blowing up our own equipment, blowing up our allies. Everything's timed out. Joint Strategic Target Planning Staff is what they used to call it. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines got together, decided what targets would be hit by what weapon, what delivery system, and when. The when was super important. So about 5 seconds out, I call out to Tim on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. We turn the keys together, hold them for about 8 seconds or until that green message transmitting light comes on, goes off. Release, that's 1 launch vote. It takes 2. We get the second launch vote, and the missiles are going to go into what's called terminal countdown. It's a 27-second process. Okay, once it starts, you cannot stop that missile. Enabled, all the way across, we've armed the missiles. Okay? Launch commanded, first launch vote comes in. Launch in process, second launch vote comes in. And missile away, as the missile pulls out there, the lower umbilical separates, and that's proof positive at launch. We make a stripe down there with our grease pencil, and we're making them here, there, and everywhere. We make our launch report to the airborne command post. We can't reach anybody else. Then we're tightening down our seat belts. You notice even the coffee pot, which is huge, is tightened down. I mean, we don't have anything loose that's going to conk us in the head.
Thank goodness you never had to do that for real.
Oh boy, I tell you what, there's nobody more thankful than me, Bob. It's a lot of responsibility, and we weren't as young as the maintainers or near as young as the security police, but you're talking about average crew member age, probably about 24 years old here, going down to maybe 22 for the maintenance, maybe 19, 20 for the security police, average age. This is a young person's game, and still is.